Hi, I'm Todd Aaron Smith. I'm looking forward to making a sketch today. This will be a lake scene, so I'm going to sketch some water, some hills, a dock. It'll be great. I'm thinking of a place that I have visited as I sketch this, but I do not have a photo of it as I draw. I would rather just imagine how I felt when I was in this place and try to make a sketch based on that. Clearly, you do not have to have been somewhere to draw it, but thinking about it while you sketch can be good. Let me show you what I mean. So here we go. As always, I want to decide where my horizon line is. Sometimes my drawings make use of that horizon lines, sometimes they don't very much at all. In this case, knowing where the horizon line is important to me. I'm beginning my sketch by knowing where that horizon line is so that I can build everything that I'm going to draw on it. I'd like to make a dynamic composition in this drawing, and what I mean by that is that I like to have things in the far background, some things that are close up, and then some things that are in the middle ground. I try to do this to make my sketches as interesting as possible. Anyway, I'm thinking about this dock that goes out over the water off towards a vanishing point. If I were to extend the lines on each side of the dock, because it is in perspective, they would meet on the horizon line at a point called the vanishing point. That is how I can draw this dock to look like it is going out away from us in perspective. There's going to be other tricks to making this look right, and I'll show you those as we go. I'm going to draw a little girl here on this dock. I'm just very lightly making these lines on my sketch as I go. Hopefully the camera is picking them up and you can see what I'm doing. But as I go, I'm just being very light because I'm going to go over almost all of this again with other pencils with darker leads in them. But for now, I'm just kind of blocking in where I think everything ought to be on my drawing. And I'm making this little girl. I think I'll have her arm kind of extended out towards the camera or the viewer, maybe not camera. The pencil that I'm using is a Mephisto made by Koh-I-Noor. It is a wonderful pencil. I love to use this one. I love to make my basic sketches with this pencil. I use it all the time. Every single day I'm using this pencil because I like using it so much. It just puts down exactly the right weight of line that I want all the time. It's balanced out really well in my hand, and I just feel really good about using this one. I really truly feel like I can make better drawings when I have good art tools to draw them with, and that's what I have right here. This Mephisto is wonderful. I think this dock should probably have a couple of posts at the end of it, so I'm making those. Some other little details along the side of this dock. This is a place that I've actually been before, which I'll talk about a little bit later. I'm not using a photo right now to draw from. I'm just kind of remembering where these posts were and just kind of making them up as I go. This one that's right up close to us here, we'll do a lot more with that a little bit later, but I'm just putting down a few more lines that should be the basic sketch of what I want to do here. That's my pretty close to the horizon line back there where the hills meet the water's edge. That's going to be water underneath the dock, of course. I think I'll draw a couple of little buildings in the background. Not very much detail, though. Those are a long ways back. This pencil is called a Toison, and it is a wonderful drawing pencil. And as you might be able to see almost right away, it's a heavier, darker line as I'm drawing. I'm not pushing on this pencil any harder than I was on the previous one. I'm just continuing to draw in a natural way. And as I do that, the pencil is making a much darker, softer line, which is exactly what I want for this drawing. I really like to use a couple of different pencils as I'm drawing. Start off with the with the sketching pencil, my Mephisto, and then move on to a darker lead as I go. I just really feel like that is a good way to approach this drawing, is to have a couple of different drawing pencils, different weights, different leads. And like I said before, I love to use pencils that are drawing tools that are made specifically for artists, and that's what these are. These are all Koh-I-Noor pencils, and I just can't say enough good stuff about them. I really enjoy them, love drawing with them, and I feel like I make better art when I'm using them. Right now, what I'm doing is filling in some of the water that's going to be underneath this dock. I'm just making a shade, and I'm not being very careful about doing it. As I go, it's a bit darker on the right side and a little bit lighter on the left side as I go. And that's okay. I'm going to show you what we're going to do with these lines as we get further into this drawing. I think I'm going to go ahead and make some sky. This is kind of the illusion of clouds is what I think I'm going to make up here. And I do that just by making some shapes up in the sky. I'm not going to specifically sit here and draw clouds, but instead what I'm going to do is make the sky everywhere that clouds are not. And by doing so, that'll give you the illusion of clouds being in the sky when you draw everything except for the clouds. It's kind of a funny backwards way of looking at it, but that's what really does work when your clouds are white. So I'm just laying down, just like I did in the water, kind of a tone over the entire page. And I'm going to go back and do something here with it in just a second to smooth that out. But as you can see, I'm just very roughly making that tone scribbly lines. Now this is just a napkin that I got out of my kitchen, just a regular old napkin. And what I want to do here is kind of bend it around my finger and make a point. And I'm going to go into my water and smooth it out. I'm just blending that pencil that I had already put down. That Toison pencil that I'm using blends very, very well. And the pad that I'm using, the pages that are inside of it, also allow for me to do that very well. And so I'm taking advantage of the opportunity to do that and making a nice drawing because I can. It gives me some capabilities that a lot of other papers and pencils do not give me. And so as we go through here, I just want to smooth out this tone that I had already laid down. And it's not going to be perfect either, but we're going to keep working on it. And I'll show you how you can cover over some of the scratchiness and sketchiness that we already put down. I'm not at all concerned that there are darker spots and lighter spots in this. And here's what this looks like now that I've lifted up a bunch of it and blended it. So I find a clean spot on the napkin and I just continue up here in the sky, moving the napkin around in kind of a circular shape there to blend in that pencil that I had laid down, blend in the tone. And like I said before, I'm not too concerned about there being darker or lighter places. I just kind of blend it out as I go. At the end of this, if my drawing looks like a sketch, then that's a good thing because it is a sketch. I don't mind that at all. I know there are some people that would love to make their drawings look so much like photographs that you can't tell the difference between their drawing and a photograph. And if that's you, then that's great. I hope you can do that. And I wish you great success with that. But that's not what I'm doing today. I'm just putting down a basic sketch, and it's always going to look like it was sketched. And there won't be very much confusion about whether or not this is a photograph or a drawing. It's always going to look like a drawing. But that's what I want because I think that's really nice. Now, here at the end of this, I'm just kind of going over with much bigger circles and kind of trying to smooth that out a little better in the sky. It can still have some darker places and lighter places, but that's natural. That's probably how it should look anyway. All right. A little bit of fixing it up here at the end. All right, I think we're doing well. I'm going back to that same pencil. It's that Toison pencil. Going to use it some more and bring out a little bit more detail. This post that's in the foreground has a it's very rough and very rugged and has a lot of deep parts in it and lighter parts. Very, very rough post, and so I want to put a texture on here that reflects that, makes it look that way. Of course, when you're drawing things, the things that are right up close to you in the foreground should be much darker, and the things that are far in the background should be lighter and have less details. So as I continue working on this, I want to think about making everything in my foreground be with a lot more detail, and the things that are way back in the background will have less. The posts that I have on the dock that goes out over the water that are further in the distance, they won't have very much detail on them at all, and you'll see that as I go through them and make them. Let's make one right now. As I do this, see that? I just did the entire post in just a second. Just laid down some really quick texture on that post, and I can move on and do some other things because those posts are further in the background and shouldn't have as much detail as this big one that we have right up here on the right side in the foreground. As I'm working this area here, I'm just thinking about what this dock looks like. It should have some boards underneath it that are sticking out on each side. I don't know how well this dock was made. It's good enough to stand on, but may not be the best dock in the entire world. That's okay. It can look kind of rough and rugged and almost falling apart. If you want to do that, it's yours. You make it be whatever you think it ought to be. In between the boards that make the dock, I think there should be a little bit of space in some of them. So that's what I'm doing here. I think some of these posts that are sticking up probably have some shadows that are being made. I have just decided that the light source ought to be on the right-hand side of the picture, of course. And so the shadows ought to be going off towards the left because your light source is on the right. And it should be consistent throughout your entire sketch to make it a lot more believable. Let's see, over here we have some, I'm going to make an extra board sticking out here as if maybe one of them fell off completely. And again, here's some space that we have between the boards, just going back. That actually helps your illusion of the dock going off in the distance. If you have the lines that are on the boards going off back to that vanishing point that I had mentioned earlier. I'm going to fix up her dress a little bit and figure out the way that I want this little girl to look as she's standing there on the dock. Here's a fun quote for you. Bad artists copy, great artists steal. Some form or other of this quote has been attributed to several different people. One of them was composer Igor Stravinsky. Another one was Pablo Picasso. It's kind of a funny quote, and I think about it now and then. I guess the idea is that if you are an artist who only copies what other artists have done, then you must be a bad artist because all you're doing is copying what somebody else has done. But if you outright steal an idea and make it your own, well, apparently that's what great artists do. I don't know how true that is, but here's how I kind of think about that. It seems like a good idea to me to find some artist that you love and try to develop kind of the same style that they do. If you really like what you're looking at with a certain artist, try and draw like them. You know, when I was an animator in the mid-1990s, I would get model sheets of characters that I was going to animate, and I would draw them, and I would draw them, and I would draw them, and I would draw them. For hours and hours and hours, I would just sit there making drawings and trying to make them look as much like the model sheets as possible. A model sheet, of course, is a sheet of paper that has a character that is in every position, imaginable that you might animate them in. Different expressions, facial expressions, and different body movements and the way that they look. And so as an animator, you draw them and draw them and draw them and draw them before you ever even animate anything. An animated cartoon might have hundreds of artists working on that cartoon, but the goal is to make that cartoon look like it was drawn by just one person. And that is done by animators all have their drawings drawn in the same way, in the same style. And so they all have to practice making their characters look the same so that it looks like there's only been one artist working on the whole thing, so that everybody's art is consistent. But if all you ever do all the time is copy what another artist has done exactly, then you haven't really done very much at all. If you find an artist that you really like, though, try to copy that person's style so that you can make your own stuff with that style, and that's a good thing. It's like standing on the shoulders of giants, but then taking that even further and taking what they've done and taking it further down the road. That seems to be how technology advances, too. Someone will take something that we already have and make it better, or faster, or more efficient, or whatever it is. Then somebody else takes what that person has done and advances it even further. It continues to build and build and build until you have the current technology. Art can be that way too, only it's much more of a personal thing. I try to draw like my favorite artist because I think that artist's art is really good. But then I take it further and I add my own touch to it. I add my own stuff and I make it mine. Then I can always look back and think about how I got to where I am. I try to remember to draw like so-and-so and make my sketches this way because eventually I'm developing my own style. And I like the way the other artists did it, and hopefully somebody will like the way that I've done the stuff that I do. But whether or not they do, I did it because I love doing it. I just love to draw. I'm going to take that same napkin that I used before, and I'm going to go back over these lines that I've made in my water and kind of smooth them out a little bit and make better shadows in the water. I'm going to continue to work those shadows and those lines in the water coming up. But for now, I'm just going to go ahead and blend those out a little bit so we don't have the hard lines from the pencil and make this look a little bit better. Yeah, it's looking good. Now I'm going to use a different pencil now. This is a woodless graphite pencil. And as you should be able to see here almost right away as I draw with it, again, I'm not pushing any harder on this pencil than I was with the previous two. I'm just continuing to draw the way that I normally draw in my style and in the way that I do it, and it's making a much darker line on the page. And that's exactly what I wanted. The first pencil I used was the Mephisto, and it made a really super nice light line. I just drew on the page lightly and found where everything should be and put everything in place. I think I'm going to take that same napkin here and go over some of the shading that I've just put down on this post. I think this is going to make it look pretty good, and then we'll go back in and put some more details that will also help it along. But as you can see, as you blend out these lines, they get kind of fuzzy and they look sort of like they're, I don't want to say blurry, but they give some tone on that post, and I'm going to go back in and put some more things on it. But now that I'm using this same pencil, this woodless graphite, I'm going to go back into my water again and do a couple of more shadows in the water. It's a little bit like the water is rippling a little bit, maybe not waves so much, but the water is in motion, and so it creates shadows and highlights, and that's what I'm trying to do. Right now I'm just putting a little bit of darker towards the bottom of my hills. Here's some more water, shadows. Just about like that. Now I think I'll go ahead and up in my hills here, use my same napkin that I keep using and go on in and blend out the darker pencil that I just put in them. As you look across them, you can see now some shading. They get a little bit lighter as they go to the top, a little darker on the bottom, of course, as they meet the water. And let's use the same pencil. I'm going to put some more detail into this same post that we keep working on. Of course, I just blended the pencil that I had previously put down here in the same place, but now I'm making some bolder, darker lines over top of that. I think I'll make a nice cut right here, and just letting this post be kind of rugged and rough looking. It's right up close to us, so that's what I want. Here on some of these other posts, I can go back in and make some sketches like this. The place that I'm thinking about as I draw this is in Guatemala, and it is one of the most beautiful places that I have ever seen, although my sketch isn't going to be anywhere near as beautiful as the actual thing. I've been there twice. Now, many thousands of years ago, a volcano erupted in what is now central Guatemala. After the volcano cooled down and became dormant, the crater that was left from the huge explosion of the volcano filled up with water and created a lake, and it's called Lake Atitlan, or in Spanish it's Lago de Atitlan. And to this day, there are 3 active volcanoes surrounding this lake. They're beautiful, and they're constantly smoking volcanoes. It's just an amazing sight to see. Okay, next I'm going to use my kneaded eraser. I have one still in the package here, not even taken out. That's what it looks like in the package. But here's one out of the package, and this is my kneaded eraser, K-N-E-A-D-E-D, kneaded because you knead it like you would knead dough. But what I'm doing with it is I'm just lifting up some of the pencil that I already put down. It's almost like drawing highlights on the water. Before I was talking about when you make clouds to draw everything except for where the clouds are. And in this case, what I'm doing is going over where I've already put pencil, and I'm lifting it up to make highlights on the water. It's not that I'm erasing any mistakes that I think that I may have made. It's just adding a little bit of extra highlight to the water as I go back and forth here, and I can squeeze the eraser and make a more chiseled end to it so that I can make it sharper and clean. On this post, as you can see, I just lift off a highlight and it gives it more depth. I think I'll go back in and make some even darker shadows as this water is closer to us. They're bigger. And I just keep working this, drawing back and forth until I feel like it's done. A lot of people will finish a drawing way before they probably should, and they'll just call it done. And if they had just worked on it a little bit longer and worked some of the shadows and highlights more, I think it would have made a huge difference. But they don't they don't do that. A lot of people stop too early from what I think they should. Okay, so I'm putting a little bit of darkness, some shadows and so forth on my little girl that's here. I actually was very fortunate. I got to meet a little girl by the name of Edith. She's 8 years old when I met her, and she and her family just absolutely stole my heart. I just fell in love with this family, and I can't say enough good things about them. I could go on all day long talking about Edith and her family. I won't do that, but I will say that it's a very good thing to think about a person that you've met or people that you know that you haven't seen while you're sketching. The little girl that I'm drawing here reminds me of Edith quite a bit. And as I draw the place where she's from, this lake with the volcanoes and the dock that goes out over the lake, I think about her and it makes me happy. I think sketching should make you happy, and thinking about her very much makes me happy. I highly recommend that you do that now and then because you will feel differently after you're done with your sketch than when you began it. It doesn't even matter if the sketch doesn't turn out like you wanted. It doesn't matter at all. You drew it for you, and the good memories you have are what's important, not the sketch itself, because you can always make another sketch. I'm going back into the sky here and just adding a little bit of darkness on the clouds. Maybe the sky is getting darker, so I think I want to add just a bit more tone as we're getting towards finishing up this drawing. All right. Sometimes the point of sketching is not to generate the results in the drawing. Instead, the point of drawing is to enjoy what we're doing. Relax and love the process. Love what you're doing. It will help so much to make nicer drawings, and you'll just love it. That's why I do it. I just love drawing. All right, we're getting towards the end of this one. I think making the sky match the rest of the drawing now is better than what we had before. I think I'll put this drawing away now, but I may get it out later and take another look at it, and maybe draw some more on it. And that's how I thought I would make a lake scene today. I have beautiful memories of visiting a place like that, and sketching this makes me think about being there. Maybe you've been somewhere that made you feel a certain way. Sketch that. Sometimes drawings are less about making something look just right and are more about how it makes us feel. Well, your sketches are for you, and whether you share your sketches with others or keep them to yourself, you should enjoy the process and let your creativity shine. Because you are an artist. See you soon.